Hi everyone and welcome along to Sonic Academy with me, Chris. Today I am joined by a producer who's making his mark on the scene, having this week just released his brand new EP on the Mousetrap label, with the label boss putting his track Bishop Takes King at the very top of his new playlist on Spotify. Would you please welcome to Sonic Academy Draft. Hi Draft, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much for joining us on Sonic Academy today. I believe you're up late trying to get cameras and mics and all working.
I was. We got there in the end, but it took a while, but we got there.
Let's dive straight in. You had a couple of VPs now on Mousetrap. You've one released there last week. This on Mousetrap. Dead Mouse has put it at the top of his playlist. Is it all starting to sort of really gel together and take off, and you've found a good home in Mousetrap?
I think so. I mean, the music itself isn't the most accessible. It's not the most easy listening for a lot of people, and I understand that. But it was never meant to be. I was very fortunate that Chris, the label manager at Mousetrap, the first tune he heard of mine was a track called If, which was on We Are Friends Volume 4, I believe. That was very different. That was something that I never imagined Mousetrap to put their name to add to the label's output release schedule. But he constantly reminding me that Mousetrap just wanted to sign good music, which was a compliment in itself, but meant that I could continue to write as freely as I wanted. I didn't have to structure it for 4x4. I didn't have to cater for tastes or current market trends. So it's kind of snowballed lately.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Are you there?
So they're providing me a platform which really, really caters what I need and compliments me in what I'm actually trying to achieve.
Cool. So, I suppose let's go back, and when you go through your body of work on SoundCloud and Spotify, there's a few rogue draft acts on Spotify that aren't you. It's really, I mean, one of my first questions is, how would you describe your sound? Because it's everything. It's, you know, it's piano pieces, it's a bit of dubstep, there's a bit of pendulum, there's a bit of electro house, there's everything, you know, grime. There was a grime remix I heard in there. So what as an artist, what do you think of yourself? What would you, in your mind, what are you?
I've always called myself as a musician.
Right. Okay.
I've tried to avoid electronic musician or EDM artist or anything like that. I just wanted to be known as a musician. Now my influences stem from everywhere. As you said, from metal to grime to pop. I was revisiting the Backstreet Boys back catalogue just the other day. No shit. But there's some fantastic songwriting. But it all stems from everywhere. And again, with the compliment inside from Mousetrap, was that I'd always wanted to get to that stage where I could have a 5-track EP or a 9-track album, and I could literally flitter from each genre without having people question, oh, is that actually him? I wanted to have that distinct sound in everything that was done and achieved, like an organic kind of ethereal vibe, but just something that also incorporates everything. I sit here and I will just jam away on the Korg microchord, and that's how certain things are started. I will sit and play guitar. I will play the BC Rich, and I will play heavy metal songs as warm-ups, and that's how other things start. So it is literally an amalgamation of all the influences that I have, essentially.
And did you find this was a problem in that labels and management and even booking for DJing going, well, we don't know what you are, you're this, you're that, you're everything, you know? Is that been a hindrance?
Yeah, a huge hindrance. I mean, that's probably the main reason why we haven't gone completely live yet, is because as awful as it is to say, I could get booked for a festival, a dance festival, and I would just throw out dance bangers. But then I could get booked for some I don't know, some dark club, intimate venue somewhere, and I'll just go full down tempo. So it's kind of, I'd like to keep it as open where if people wanted to come and see me live or in a live environment, it's kind of, you can come there as a new person, but it helps to have that background, because then it gives me the creative freedom to play and exercise as much as I wanted influenced. But yeah, it has been a hindrance, unfortunately, but I mean, that spurs me on to get to the position where it doesn't become a hindrance, and I command that on myself.
I mean, I suppose it probably has been a little bit of a hindrance, but you're still now, you found a home in one of the biggest, you know, electronic labels in the world, with, you know, with one of the biggest producers now, you know, putting your stuff at the top. So there's obviously some recognition. I take it creative freedom is something that's incredibly important to you, that it's something you will not compromise on.
I'll choose my words carefully. I will compromise
until the rent's due.
Yeah, I will compromise, but I mean, the way I see it is very, very different to a lot of the public and the labels see it, which is kind of unfortunate. For example, of the EP that came out on Friday, my personal favourite is Herman Hill, because that tune is so dear to me, 6 years old, etc., etc. But for the label and a lot of other people, Bishop Takes King was the one. Now there is a whole backstory to Bishop Takes King, but it's not as personal to me as Herman Hill. So I'd always had this interpretation that, you know, Herman Hill was going to be the one that people would get into, they'd push, which, you know, they kind of have. But Bishop Takes King kind of became that lead with the top of the Spotify and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's, the creative freedom is still there for everything, but it's just the tunes that I write that I perceive from my point of view to be the ones that people will sort of latch onto aren't usually the ones.
Do you know, I think that's indicative of all, you know, the tracks that I used to put everything into, and there were these epic productions that just go over people's heads, and then this kind of throwaway tracks you kind of went, oh yeah, there you go. They were, oh, this is amazing. And you're like, all right, I just don't get this anymore. Let's talk specifically about, say, tracks like Herman Hill. Listening to it, it's a real, the drum programming, and it's the sort of the second half. It's 4/4 time. But is it? I was trying to work out this morning and last night what is going on. Is it a triplet beat over a non-triplet musical part, or what? Can you explain to me what's happening?
I got asked this just the other week, and I kind of beat around the bush in an answer, which I really don't want to do to you.
Okay.
But I was speaking to another, a very popular musician who's now a good friend, and he was telling me that one of the tracks that he heard made people think, and he said that was kind of the pulling point to your music, was that it made people think. So I've since learned that I could tell how it was arranged, how it was done, but people's interpretations are always much more important to me. Now the end of the tune, or sorry, that section of that tune was just simply a variation of the first drum beat. It's literally me going into FL Studio, slicing and moving drum patterns within themselves. The key thing I always stress is that I don't think too much of it.
Okay.
Now, I know the musical effect it has, the triplet and etc., etc., but there was no thought process behind that particular incident. It just, I wanted to switch up the groove for the final section and lead it into this drawn out finish as such. It's not the answer you want, but
no. I mean, I think Dan's usually said, "Oh, I'm a very accomplished musician, and this is a 7/8 pattern," and you could have bullshitted me the whole way through it.
I could do it. I will at some point. But not.
It definitely, you know, it's jarring when it comes in, and you're right. You're kind of going, right, my brain. What's happening here? And you, exactly as you say, you have to stop and think about it. You go, right, what is going on here? And I was trying to work out, going, is it just this sort of off kilter beat? And I suppose I can completely understand that I would have sometimes just done things as an experimentation and left them, and people thought more deeply about it, and you're going, well, no, it was just you know, me chopping something up, trying to create interest in it. You know, it's. I
mean, the theory behind it was. The whole tune is offsetting, really. It's in a key that I don't usually write in. I can't remember what it is though. It's in a key I don't usually write in. The drum pattern is a shuffle that this tune was created 6 years ago, and not much has changed aside from the engineering of it. But the drums were always meant to be that offsetting shuffle, right to the point where I program with the NFL and I will shift things off purposely, but so much slightly that they're noticeable, but only if you actually listen to the track.
Right.
So that was kind of the pulling power of that tune, because I love the melody. The melody in my head is utter beauty, and that's not bragging. That's just, you know, the kind of melody that I've always wanted to do. And then to have that beauty on the contrast was to have this unsettling drum pattern. Really.
Yeah. Okay.
The final section of that tune was to have that really, really kind of odd drum pattern.
Just a juxtaposition. What's creating the melody? It's kind of like is it like a synthesized harp, or what is it? Chopped up sample, or what's creating that sort of harp melody? Is it sort of noise? You can't remember, can you?
No, but I'm thinking now the actual that plucky over melody is a combination of an acoustic guitar and a harp, but it was all kind of merged and chopped up using a FL slicer to create the pattern. The original sounds nothing like that, but then underneath is more guitars that have a shimmering effect via Guitar Rig 4, I believe it is, just to give it that extra little brightness. But yeah, the melody that carries it through was a acoustic guitar with a harp player, I think. So is it live? Is it actually a live harp player on the track? I wish. I wish. Okay. I don't think I could even get a harp in this bloody room. I wish.
At the moment, we've talked probably about Dead Mice's playlist on Spotify. Your track Bishop Takes King sitting at the top of it. Tell us a bit of story behind that track. What was the thought process going on there, and how does it feel? That track was actually started. One of my best friends works for a television production company that we will say more on. And he said, you know, would you fancy writing a piece of music for a documentary we're doing? So I thought, yeah, great, because I've always wanted to get into that side of the industry and video games and etc. So I'd started with the intro glass melody, this really warped kind of, you know, uneasy thing, and I was really happy with it before it had drums, before I had anything. And I sent it to him, and he was just kind of like, what is this? What can I do with this? I thought, you know, you'd be a bit less brutal to begin with. But then it's always stuck with me. The simple melodies, it was just something that just was ingrained in there totally. So I just ran with it and developed it. And then I sent an early mix to Mousetrap, and they really, really enjoyed it. And it was kind of like, oh, I can write a tune on Mousetrap in 3/4 that doesn't actually suit, in my mind, the ethos of the label, but they want to run with it. It was like, sweet, let's do it. And is there kind of is there a change with Mousetrap in what they're doing? Is there been, like, in the last 18 months they are experimenting a little bit more and pushing a bit more experimentation, soundtracky, you know, off kilter stuff? Is that something that's been communicated to you and you understand, or is it something that's just sort of organically happening? I think it's a combination of both. I think, careful not to rant, I think that EDM has kind of died now. Thank Christ. Yeah. But it meant that people, the new audiences who flocked to EDM, the new audiences who flocked to EDM are now after a little bit more. And with Mousetrap, I mean, they're an artist. The artists are just an elite group, you know. That's not including me, obviously, but the people who have been on that label before are elite and almost pioneers in what they've gone on to achieve and what they do. Now, so Mousetrap always had that avenue to pursue. Now, it's just the way that electronic music has burgeoned into this surreal kind of access all areas to everything, that they have consciously, and I know through conversations, have widened their output from the left field to
down tempo to everything, which kind of puts it all on a not on a different playing field in an arrogant sense, but it kind of puts them almost as a leader, because they're not having to settle and cater for what they're resting on. It's constantly pushing and evolving.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think the output at the moment, Matt's album, which I checked, was it an album or EP, checked out last month or the month before. I mean, I sent him off an email going, sonically it's one of the best things I've heard in a long time. You know, the mix down, the balance of sounds where it was mind-blowingly good. You know, it's just, as you say, it seems to be an elite area for artists to go to, and if you get on the Mousetrap, you're doing something quite correct. You know, let's talk about the last track on the album, While She Slept, and it's a pure piano cello piece. Is that a bold statement to put that on? Is it something you go, I want to do this? Or how does it fit in your mind? How does it fit in with the rest of the EP?
The context of it was written whilst the next girlfriend slept. The melody came to my head, the piano, and it went from there. And it got rehashed. It was a couple of years ago, but it got rehashed. And then, I don't know where it fits in terms of the EP. I just think it got to a point where I wanted something to close out the EP, and I wanted something to emphasize. The way I treated the release schedule so far was that the first EP was kind of like my introduction. When it was a free download, it was kind of like, hi, this is me, this is what I can do. This EP was more of what I want to do and what I want to bring people in with. So to have the variation of the tracks, but then this just had to close out the EP for me, and thankfully they agreed, and they were more than happy for it. But it's literally me. I'm not that affluent on a piano, so I was re-recording several sections of it over and over again, and I think it was actually a fiddle, touching back to the Irish roots. It was a fiddle used on it, not live again. But for me, it was just the perfect way to close out the EP, because it showed the musicality, and it showed that you can listen to 4 other songs, hopefully enjoy them, obviously, then get to this final track and just think, wow, what on earth is this guy doing or trying to achieve? Or whatever it is, I like it and I want to hear more.
It genuinely, that was my thought. I was kind of, I'm sitting typing questions and listening and stuff, and
what is he doing?
and then this sort of, and I'm kind of going, well, this is odd. This is, and you go back and think that Spotify's jumped onto a different track, and then you go, no, this is part of the EP, and then you kind of accept it and listen to it, and you go, right, great. And then it moved on to the next EP, and it kicked back in, and I was going, well, that was actually a really nice change from the whole dance thing, and it was a really lovely sort of respite, and then you're back into some more clubbish orientated stuff. And I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
We've talked about your influences, all the rock and stuff. Is that where it started for you? Were you a rock head, or were you always a club head, or what's, you grew up in London, is that right? Yeah,
East London. I was that weird in the middle guy. Right. I was raised on Dire Straits, Bruce Springsteen, U2, the Wolf Tones, the Dubliners, But so I was raised on everything from that to folk music, and then as I got older, I developed my own kind of identity. I went through that new metal phase, the pop phase. Oh man, as I said, Backstreet Boys. I was big on that as a kid. And then it just kind of snowballed and escalated. I always sought something different. So I eventually ended up at the Prodigy. Fat and Lamb. I'm not old enough to go back as far as I have since, obviously, but my first introduction Prodigy was Fat of the Land. And then I discovered metal. Then I discovered death metal, thrash metal, and then that's when I started learning about music and learning to write music.
So, and you've the Pilly GP. You have a track. Do You Join, which is again, like Shiraz, it's just this massive funk workout.
Yeah.
So where does the funk element come into your production?
I I mean, first and foremost, I'm a huge James Brown fan and people like that. That's my that's my jam, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You put that on and I dance. And then obviously the Daft Punk, the Justice influence, where they would take that kind of sound, the live bass guitars, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then, I mean, at midnight last night or this morning, whichever way you look at it, I had the idea to start something like that and try and put a draft influence on it. It's just the funk, you know. It's just kind of switching things up every now and then that you don't really expect. I mean, I'd like to think now that just off the back of the last EP, that if I made a function, people would be very, very surprised, yet not, if that makes sense. You try and provide enough variety in what you do by every now and then dropping in something like that, of that ilk.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like now, I mean, if on the next EP, if we do this again, you could say, oh, on the previous EP you had Du Join, and on the next one you had this. It's kind of, it just shows that side of you, that you can kind of do that thing if you want to. If you do it well, completely different story. But the fact you can do it, it's kind of there, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's get down to some actual nuts and bolts about the productions. You use FL Studio. Are you very much just using FL stock plugins, or do you have a vast array of external plugins that you love to use and is very key to your sound?
One that I'm really, really enjoying at the moment is the Prophet, the Arturia Prophet.
Right.
It's just, I don't know my way in and out of it just yet. But, I mean, for example, the Sorry kind of, Vangelis kind of synth in Bishop Takes King was a product of that, and Massive. So there's, I'd say, Arturia products. There's Massive, which I tend to use Massive, Native Instruments Massive, and avoid bass and leads in it,
right,
because it's got such a distinct sound that it becomes very instantly recognizable, which I prefer to not have.
Yeah.
And I've been playing a lot in Serum lately. I'm just finding that fascinating at the moment.
And I mean, Serum has opened up a world of possibilities for people. Just it seems to enthuse people about sound design. Are you a presets guy? Are you somebody who sits and noodles with sound design? How do you approach your sound? A lot of my sounds stem from hearing other things that interest me in certain sounds, in certain songs, sorry, and then just trying to recreate them. Right. And then if I get to almost reverse engineering, and if I get to a point where it's kind of close, I will then try and evaluate the sound, what's gone into it, what fundamentals have made it what it is, and then just try and make it unique again. I tend to stay clear of presets or anything to do with that, sample pack presets, because you kind of get thrown into that generic pile. Yeah. Whereas if you try and keep your own kind of basic sound design fundamentals within the VSTs, then you can create certain things. I mean, again, Bishop Takes King, the glass bell was a glass sample and an instance of Massive, I think. It's just what you do with it, rather. And what do you do for drums? When you say you avoid sample packs, obviously you've got some sort of sample packs, or are they completely is this samples you've taken from records and stuff, you've built up a private collection, or what? How does it work?
I have I have a lot of drums, probably more than anything else in the sample library. A lot of them stemmed from me trying to create my own electronic drums via Absinthe and things like that, where I would create my own kick drums from Soundwaves, things like that. And then it became a complement to the fact that I wanted my sound to be organic, acoustic, natural. So I would layer things with acoustic drums. So there's certain packs and sample creation companies that I will go to. HD Drums, I think, is one of them, or Sounds in HD, sorry. Sounds in HD Drums, I think one of them's called. And they give off the most rounded, almost beautiful sounding samples that I hear. And I like to manipulate them beyond their original sounds, and then just stack and layer. I mean, obviously inside the project videos, the drums are seem very kind of lacking in layers compared to how they sound. But a lot of them are accrued over time. A lot of drum sounds, from cymbals to hats to snares to toms to percussion. Obviously, I'm a big fan of percussion, acoustic percussion sounds. Some of it does come from Foley. I mean, there's a table in front of me. I would be lying if I said that I hadn't recorded myself tapping away on it. There are certain other things in this room that has been brought into this room that I recorded and done. But there are go-to when it comes to the drum sounds, because drums are a big part of my music, to me personally anyway.
I was going to ask you about drums. I mean, is there a drumming history there? Because your rhythms are so complex and different, and the sounds are so complex and different. There's definitely some sort of underlying wannabe drummer in there if you're not a drummer.
Yeah. I played drums for 5 years. Again, that was in my metal music phase, where I wanted to learn as fast and hard and technical as I could. So it'd be the double bass, it would be everything, trying to fly around a kit. So I wanted to incorporate it as much as possible. But I mean, I have written some songs that are a bit darker, a bit too dark for Mousetrap, that incorporate that kind of musicianship background in terms of, the live guitars and the drumming.
Yep.
But obviously I have to strip it back quite a lot when I present it in a track, especially as diverse as Mousetrap are. I could give them a tune and they could just say, "What on earth is this?" We haven't heard a double bass drum solo in a dance tune or electric.
How do you find? I mean, how much is Joel involved in the process? Is he involved at all? And do you find Mousetrap, they are supportive and they do give you creative, but do they also? I mean, they also want you to conform to their sound as well.
To be honest, no. I mean, but in terms of conforming to the sound, I mean, I often say, in the most non-arrogant way, that I don't sound anything like anything else on Mousetrap or associated with Mousetrap, and that's kind of what I'm always trying to emulate and show people. But they're very hands-on, but very hands-off. When it comes to me writing in the studio, I don't hear a word from it until I send them a demo or a master, and usually it's got to the point now where I will work towards a concept of an EP or an album, and then I will send that out as a whole, as a track listing, how I want it to sit as a track listing, and then I might get feedback. I don't do the demos, I don't clog up their inbox, because you learn from experience how certain labels will want to work and how they set a benchmark. So there'd be no point me sending a very basic version 1, which doesn't sound anywhere near like a final product or a finished product, which a lot of people do, unfortunately, and have them turn around and say, well, we're not going to do anything with this right now. It's kind of sounding okay, but it's not going to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
But in regards to the actual involvement from there and that point on, I mean, Joel and the creators of the Beats One Mousetrap Presents, they gave me support with 2 of the tracks on this EP, the From Inside EP, and 2 of the tracks from the first EP that I had with them. So they've always been very supportive. They've always appreciated what I do and what I'm trying to push. But in terms of getting involved and shaping my sound or the tones or what I'm trying to convey, they will never do, which is a blessing. Absolutely,
and probably quite unusual as well, and
yeah.
Probably something to cherish there. Let's go back to plugins. What you talked about, synth use, massive, and some samples stuff. What about mix plugins? What sort of effects? What's go-to reverbs? What's go-to compressors?
I end up talking a lot with people on Twitter about reverb. Valhalla Room and the native fruity reverb are my 2 go-to.
Yeah.
obviously for different reasons in themselves, but they're kind of the go-to, as is the Valhalla Delay, Valhalla Mod, I think it's called, and the Fruity Delay 2, I think that one is. But I am very much a native FL Studio guy. I use the inbuilt parametric EQ2. I use Maximus. I use a Maximus and a low pass for the layer above my sines, the sub, which is a technique. And then outside of that, I have a transient shaper to give my drums that extra little kick and snap, and obviously adjust the release times on them. Yeah, I mean, it's very. If when people watch the videos and they see inside the project videos and they see what I use, it's kind of the same things, because it kind of it all comes together to create that draft sound, if I can call it that. Yeah. I mean, Homicide Distortion, I love. The XFAR LFO I use sometimes for side chaining.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very limited. I'm not one of those who likes to expand and build up his plugin library of all these superb plugins that, you know, will get used once every 6 tunes.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel the need to do that in a way.
And what about mastering? Do you have anything on your mastering output, and do you make stuff into that master chain, or is it completely blank, or what's?
On my when I'm actually writing and producing, my master chain is an EQ, where I can cut highs and lows and just see how muddy mixes are and how well things sit with each other. I have the Voxengo span, which I love. I also have an instance of Ozone maximizer, Ozone 5 maximizer, just to boost it to a level, the final master chain to a level where gets stripped out when it comes to actually exporting the final right. version. But as I'm working on it, if I just want to hear it at a bit of volume, so I do tend to work at low volume, just for the sake of my ears. But then when I actually come to mastering itself, because obviously a lot of people ask, I actually do master my own tunes.
Okay, right.
Which is very, very strange. And it was always, I'm by no means an expert. I've just learnt ways as I've gone along. I've never studied, I've never done a course. It's just how I perceive things. Mastering your own tunes are very dangerous, but in the sense that, you know, you can become too attached to something and not kind of
be critical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that all started with If, the first tune I had on We Are Friends Volume 4. I sent off to have them mastered, and then in my own time, about a month later, I just went and mastered it myself without hearing their one. And then when I combined the two together, theirs had a slight boost. The Mousetrap Master had a slight boost on the high end, but everything else in terms of levels and the shaping of it matched mine. So that kind of made me think that if I factor into that, then I kind of know I'm on the right lines, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
So over time, I've seen everything I've done, I've mastered. The From Inside EP, I was really happy with. And again, that's literally a native Fruity compressor, just to sort of level things off, but not limit or push or drive. Hate the loudness wars. Won't get into that. I also have, and then it's just instances of Ozone, Isotope Ozone 7 individual aspects. The EQ, I have the exciter on it, obviously the limiter or maximizer, and I think I do play with the width a fair bit in that, because my mixes I prefer, I keep the basics mono, as you should, you know, adhere to this, adhere to that. But other than that, I like everything to be splashed out wide. So when it comes to mastering, I mean, you know, I'm at the point now where coming from the drum and bass back and all that sort of stuff, everything had to be mono so it worked in a club and all this sort of stuff. I understand now that people will listen to music anywhere that has stereo capabilities on your phone, through headphones or in studios or wherever. So it's kind of, you know, let's throw, probably incorrectly, let's throw out that rule book and then just literally, as I master, as I go along, I'll keep to the same aspects, but a lot of things will vary.
And would you fold the mix down to mono just to check it every now and again to make sure there's no phasing issues and stuff? Yeah.
Yes. It took me many years to get my bloody head around it, which I regret now. I should have not been so stubborn. But the phase correlation, things like that, I knew that if it went left, it would be dangerous. If it went right, if it stayed right, it was all good. But then I became very ignorant to it, and then when I listen back and open up old project files, I think, Christ, that was stupid of me. Yeah. And anyone who knows will think, yeah, Liam, you should have known better.
Well, I mean, it's all a learning curve. I think they should have those correlation meters, good and bad. That's it. What's planned for the rest of the year, 2016 and into 17? Is there more EPs? Are you thinking albums? Are you going to stay at Mousetrap? Are you going to do other labels? What would be the master plan if there is one?
There is a plan. There's a hefty plan, some of which we can't discuss. Okay. I've already started on the third EP, which is kind of shaping up to be an album. It's pretty dark. I don't know. The first EP was kind of like varied. This one was laid back, drawn back, detracted, quite sinister in its sound, some of it. But I don't know why. I'm in a good place. But this next EP is shaping up to be really, really dark for no reason whatsoever.
I know you'll throw a disco number in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'll have to now. But I'd say that, and Mousetrap would just reject it anyway. But I'm wrapping up the EP. We are currently looking at creating some form of live show, but obviously to get to that, I need to have the releases behind me, as well as do a few DJ shows, just so I can experiment, see what people are kind of after. But then there's a live show. There's some stuff that's being done for films, and there's stuff that's being done for games, which I don't know would associate with the draft name, but it will certainly be me, in either under my real name or the draft moniker. And then hopefully early next year, there will be an album in the works, but it's not going to be a 9, 10, 11 track album. It's going to be a fully fledged 16, 17 LP, double vinyl, double CD.
Gatefold.
Yeah, just basically go and try and build up this almost a repertoire of being so varied that if I were asked to do such a feat, as it were, it wouldn't be a problem. Just creatively showing diversity, essentially. That would be the plan.
You should have maybe taglines: Daft Dark, or Draft Dark, Draft Disco, Draft Moody, so people know what they're getting when they're DJing.
Yeah, which is something that I really need to consider, because you kind of do get actually you don't even know what you're going to get with me. But then,
can I ask, do you know when you're turning up for DJ date, is it just whatever mood you're in is what you're going to play, or do you tailor it to the audience? You know what type of gig you're playing, and therefore you play that style? Or will you just go, do you know what, I'm in a really dark mood tonight, so I'm going to play dark?
Well, I'm in a really, really upset mood, so I'm just going to play Radiohead all night.
Yeah, backwards.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's one of the last shows I played was for a friend's evening, not a dinner party, a friend's festival party, and I did an hour of garage, and that went down amazingly well. But if it was for me, I mean, I would talk with the booking agency. I would talk with the guys that I'm secretly going to sign to soon, as well as the promoter, and I'd say, look, what are you trying to create? What do you want me to do here? Yeah. If you want an hour of drafts disco jams, let's do it. Let's throw down some soul. But then again, it's like much like the idea of an album, I'd like to be able to get to it. Like I did a mix recently for 1001 track lists. What it was all draft. It was all tunes from my back catalogue, most out and public, some a couple not. And it kind of spanned through the whole genres. And I'd like to think that if someone was going to pay to see me, that they would eventually get their money's worth, whether they're after the deeper side or the happier side, the dancey side. the down tempo side. So it's kind of a strange one.
Right.
It's I would never put people off and say you're never going to know what you get with me. But yeah, I'd like to have that variation, that opportunity to be as varied as possible.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, it has been absolutely incredible talking to you today and getting an insight into your world, as mixed up and as crazy as it is. And I think that your sound is undefinable. It's really interesting. It's, you know, you're not following any trends or jumping on any bandwagons, and it's shining through, and your music genuinely makes you think and study and go, hold on a second, this isn't right. You kind of go and have to look at it closer. Thank you so much for joining us at Sonic Academy.
No, thank you very much.
Guys, thank you to Liam for joining us. Go and check out his EP. I'll try and publish the playlist on Spotify, but as I say, Dead Mouse has already got a really good playlist there of stuff, and his Bishop Takes King is sitting at the top of that. Thank you to Liam for divulging some of the inner secrets, and hope to see you all very, very soon. Thanks everybody for watching, commenting, and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content. And if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.